आपने रोड पकड़ लिया, वो जगह पकड़ ली, वो पब्लिक की जगह है,
बिल्कुल,
उसमें आपने एक अपनी गाड़ी पार्क करके आप निकल गए और आपको पैसा नहीं देना है उसका. There is a saying in Gujarati which says मारू शू.
what about me?
इसमें मेरा क्या है? What's in it for me? Right?
Yeah.
So what? So मारू शू. We have always innovated for lesser effort to do the same thing. So there's a whole concept of how you can reduce cars by charging for public parking.
I come from Delhi and we have this rule of the vehicle not being supposed to be used after 10 years, wherein all cars almost are in perfect condition for 10 years.
It's a very complex process and there are many things. Like if people say don't mind, can you get a syringe without metal? Now if you can't grow it, if you can't hunt it, you have to mine it.
How many companies do actually practice sustainability?
So okay, let me shatter a few myths here.
Hi, coming up next is Harsh Purohit, Sustainability and Communication Strategist, Co-Founder Cognito. Brilliant man, very well read, very well traveled, a holistic view on sustainability. I hope you enjoy. Proportionately, in terms of percentage, how many companies do actually practice sustainability?
Okay, let me shatter a few myths here. The word sustainability comes from the English word of sustain, which means longevity, to be survived over a long period of time.
चले लंबे
Right?
time
हाँ.
तक.
So that is sustainability. There's nothing else.
Yeah.
Now, whose sustainability are we talking about is the key. I'm talking about a business sustainability. So it's the ability of that business to sustain. Right? Now we have clients who are over 100 years. Right? That means they obviously have the ability to sustain. What has changed? What has changed is that the parameters which you needed earlier are now changed a little. Earlier, when you wanted to have a business of, say, wood, or you wanted to go forest logging, what do? You wanted a chainsaw. Forest to bahut tha. You just needed a chainsaw. And you could do a business. Now chainsaws are dime a dozen. Forest nahi hai. So the perspective has changed to what is in scarce supply. So scarce supply. You want to do fishing. Earlier you used to have a trawler. If you had a trawler, you could make a lot of fish because then you'd put the net and you didn't have to put one pole and sit. Trawler se jaake, deep sea se bhi jaake aap leke aate. Now what has happened is you may have a trawler, but there's no fish. So the sustainability of your business now depends on, are you going to be able to get more fish? Are you able to rejuvenate the ecosystem and so that fish reproduce more? And so the core risk factors have changed. So that is the area of sustainability, is about what are the risks that a business has. And if a business wants to scale, what are the enabling factors that the environment should offer?
Right.
When you get that, that is what will get you sustainable. Now, if you understand this theory of concept, then you know that what are the areas which will promote and what are the areas which could be obstacles. So we formed what is a 4P kind of a framework of how to look at sustainability from a business angle.
Okay.
I'm not looking at sustainability of the earth. I'm looking at sustainability of a business.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So in that, the first is what we call progress and prosperity.
Okay.
And we are not seeing profit.
Not saying.
That's the difference. It is a much larger term than profit. So progress means you're constantly moving ahead, and prosperity means for multiple people and stakeholders and not only for you.
Which includes profits.
Profit has to be then equally distributed. And by equally, I don't mean equally means proportionate nahi karna. You have to make it as per the effort that each person has given, value addition. Everybody should be, So that is the first level that one needs to do. Now, this is something that most clients understand. There's no issues with that.
Right.
The second is, if you're not looking at the carrot, there's a stick, which is protest and paranoia. Right? So what happens is that if you are taking water from the ground and the village is not getting any water to drink and you're bottling it in a bottle and selling it out, then people will come and lock down your factory. So that's a protest because you are using a resource which is not rightfully only yours. So therefore, you have to now use resource very carefully. Simple logic. You don't want the protest.
Yeah.
If you don't want the protest, you have to use the resource very carefully. And what are resources? There are basically three resources in the world which run any business. The first resource is natural resource. So you may say, I make computers, but you still need silicon, you still need rare earth, so every business needs natural resource. And energy is also a natural resource. Water is a natural resource, and all of these minerals, everything is. So that is one resource which you need natural. So you have to use natural resource very carefully if you do not want protest. Because all natural resources are becoming scarce. And because they become scarce, people look at it way more closely. If there's an abundance of it, nobody's bothered. Second is human resource. Without a human resource, you can't run a, right? You may need lesser, you may do tech, but you still need human resource. So human resource, how fairly are you treating them? What is the health, safety of those people, respect, fairness, all of that comes in. So how well you treat human resource is the key. How do you train them well? You will see that most companies in their CSR do three things. One is they do education. Second is they do hygiene. And third is they do skilling. Right? Why do they do that? All the three help a person perform better when they're employed. You have an uneducated person, they won't be able to perform, productivity kam ho jayegi. If the person's health and hygiene is impacted, productivity kam ho jayegi. And same as if they're not skilled, they can't give. So what they're doing is CSR leke, what they're doing is, it may not come back directly to their business, but it's going to business as a whole. So therefore, that is how you do human resource. And the third is financial resource. Without financial resource, you can't do, right? And financial resource gets given to you with certain amount of what one calls governance principles. So how good are your governance principles? On that depends if you will be given financial resources or not. If you find that the company chore hai, so stock market koi uska stock nahi uthayega. Right? If you know that the company is great, it's blue chip, it has been good governance standard, then people will. So that is how these three resources have to be looked at. So the second piece, protest and paranoia, which happens because of that. And paranoia, because in today's day and age of social media, a paranoia can be whipped up. Paranoia means it may be true or not. It is a fear of something wrong happening and people will jump onto you. So you have to manage that also. Then you come to the third, and if not the carrot, not the stick, then you have big brother watching, which is the government, and then comes policy and politics. So if Trump says this is the policy, everything, if there is a 15% rate now only on EV, then what happens to India's EV manufacturer? All of a sudden the whole thing changes. Right? So policy changes. If single-use plastic is not to be used, now how do the Tetra Pak, how do you drink from it?
The whole industry.
The whole industry is gone down it, right? So now your Coke bottle, what will happen? Right? So how will it be? Yeah. So one change can change a lot of things for the positive or for the negative. Each policy decision has, multiple layered effect. And politics. What has happened right now is policy has changed because of politics. Mr. Trump comes in, politics says, India, your policy is not fine for me. That politics changes our policy. So policy and politics has always been a big thing. Be it a Nandigram or Singur, when it happened, politics, people had to change. So that impacts the sustainability of your thing. So that is
always.
So that's another thing, but a lot of people don't always look at it. People are only looking at profit, cost, what I've done. So these are all now talking about sustainability. So we've talked about these three P's. First was progress and prosperity. Second was protest and paranoia. Third was policy and politics. And then last comes what we all consider sustainability right now, preservation and prudence. So preservation is, I'm going to make sure that the preservation of my supply chain continues. Right? So it's preservation of three things as usual, as I say. It's preservation of business as usual. For that, you have to make sure that the supply continues. Customers are there who want to buy from you, so that continues. So you have to ensure both of that. Without that, you cannot preserve business as usual. You have to make sure that talent keeps on joining you and wants to work with you. Right? You have to ensure that your societal license stays. Otherwise, you won't get to work. You have to ensure your government license stays. So that is your preservation, and for that you have to practice prudence. If you do, so that's business as usual. The second is when it comes to the professional within it, it's your career as usual. Your career as usual, are you able to adapt to AI? Changing times, are you able to adapt to it? If you always thought that I can only make profit and get away, then you're going to exploit human resource. Then the human resource stop coming to you. Or if you're going to throw your effluent out in the river, you will have no license to operate, right? So if you're going to keep on drawing groundwater, people will come and lock down your factory. So career as usual, you have to now think of all of these 360 things. If you don't think of these, you will become redundant and then nobody will hire you. So if today somebody doesn't know computers, will he get a job? Won't, right? Why? The person learned. So newer technology, newer paradigms were learned. If you don't learn them, right now the newer paradigms for prosperity are these sustainability ones. If you don't learn them, people won't keep your businesses. So your career as usual won't happen. And then the final is life as usual, which is to carry on the air quality is good or not. What is the level of air quality? How is the water? Are we going to keep on getting grain, climate change? All of that comes under that area of keeping. So what people today look at sustainability is in a very small dimension. It's actually so large. Now, all companies, you ask me, should global or Indian? Everybody first starts with only speaking. Okay? What we do as Cognito, a lot of people tell us, you work with this. I said, one thing you realize, they all are generating value. If they were not generating value, they would have died. Right? Now, the idea is you get them and you have to sometimes educate them. You educate them, you get them to make a public announcement of their roadmap. Once they made a public announcement of a roadmap, they will follow it. Remember one thing, all people who are working in industry and all are also well-meaning people. They also have children and they also have relatives and they also want to live and they also want to make sure that everybody breathes the same. So nobody is there with a villainous, which is how industry has been painted. And I strongly believe that that's not, because if you don't generate value, you're not going to be able to distribute value. So you have to generate value, right? If people say don't mine. Now, if you can't grow it, if you can't hunt it, you have to mine it. Now think of it. Can you get a syringe, right, without metal? There'll be no medical care, right? There'll be, these light stand wouldn't be standing. There is, so without metal, there is so much that would not happen. So you have to dig metal and metal is going to come from the earth. So telling that mining is going to be bad broadly is not the true sense. It is a very, very myopic thinking. You have not thought through the entire chain.
What will happen with it? What not?
Without without mining, there would be no computers. Right?
What are we talking
You
about?
would be there'd be no railways, there'd be no airlines, there'd be no cars, right? There'd be no your phone.
Well, what are you going to replace metal with?
Exactly. So that one has to understand that all of things is needed. It's to be done responsibly, where it can rejuvenate. It's what we call the elastic limit and the plastic limit. In the engineering concept, we are always taught that anything that goes to the plastic limit then stays deformed. And anything that's in the elastic limit comes back. So you have to work within the limits of what Earth's resources are in that. And you have to look at making sure that it can rejuvenate itself. So this is what is to be done now. Different people are practicing it at different levels across geographies. So it is not that all companies abroad are practicing them more. People in Europe and all are practicing it much more because they're policy driven.
But does capitalism being also the prime motive, profitability being a very very aware agenda in the mind of any business, does it not conflict with the concept and the pillars of sustainability?
It does to a certain level, because I think humanity by basic nature has been myopic. And we have been told to look at self-survival. From a Maslow's hierarchy, you look at. Now, the day you realize that your self-survival depends on the community survival. See, human beings are not the fastest, not the largest, not right. We are only good as a collective. If you are alone, the leopard will kill you, right? Right? Because you have a gun which somebody made and you know how to fire it, now you may have a chance. Right? So the idea is, because somebody built you a house, the weather and the climate cannot come in. All our prowess comes from being collective and making sure that each one of us has a specialization and a special job, which we do well, which contributes to the collective. So the minute all of us realize that, then we will buy into the true sustainability. Right? Till then, what will happen is, we will keep doing, मेरे को नहीं करना है, right? I can get away without doing it. People are doing it. I will take the advantage of it. I will still exploit and make as much for myself. Right? But that is going to be the push and pull of society constant. This is something, again, because I lost my dad early, he told me something which stays with me. This happens when you lose someone early, what they've said stays. So he used to always say that till college, if you're not a communist, and post 10 years of working, if you're not a capitalist, then there's something wrong with you. His whole thing is that the push and pull of society works like where the young have to be idealist and they are looking for, right, making sure that the world goes toward idealism. And then there are these when you are into the work and force and all, and then the reality comes on you and then you get weighed down and your idealism has certain amount of realism which comes onto it. And that's how life goes on. And as long as these two are balancing forces, life goes on. Now, if one of them becomes too bigger than this, or this idealism changes to that, then you are going to have a problem. Then there's a imbalance. And whenever there's imbalance, there will be some disruption. So that is my thought process of sustainability, that you keep things in balance. There will be some people who will want to extract more. And what you have to show them as our job, if you want to do behavior change, is to show them that they can extract more if they ensure there is more.
So what about automobile industry?
Hmm.
When we talk about sustainability in that longevity, and I come from Delhi, and we have this rule of the vehicle not being supposed to be used after 10 years, wherein all cars almost are in perfect condition for 10 years, considering today's technology. And so that
Yeah.
your opinion on that one point, that's one. But in general, for the automobile industry, all, everybody has a car. 5 people household have 4 to 5 cars, right?
Yep.
Clearly does not sound like the right plan for the longevity of human sustenance, right?
So
So what's going on?
yeah,
What all are the
it's a very
lobbies?
complex process, and there are many, many things. So first and foremost, the whole idea about the 10-year diesel concept and all. So obviously there are, if you remember when there was a crash in the US, the whole idea was to give people money to replace their cars and to junk their old cars. And what it does, it gives a huge fillip to the GDP. So one is that. Second is, are all 10-year diesel cars bad? No. Right? But when policies get made, the sweeping brush, all who are with it also get the same, short end of the stick. So that's something you can't, so that's one. Idea is that how is urban planning done? Are mixed use residences and neighborhoods formed where you can walk to work? Will the residence and the commercial stay together and would you feel okay? So the urban planner and the local government have to be working very closely to make sure that first and foremost, how many places do you need an automobile? That is one needs to look at it from that area. Having said that, then comes the whole idea about the local government and what is the public transport. So there's a whole concept of currently how you can reduce cars by charging for public parking. Okay. So this, you have to understand that sustainability and behavior change is a multivariate.
Sure.
It is never going to be one,
Sure.
right?
Fair.
So that is the first part, and therefore people are using cars for the convenience to reach somewhere. Can you give them something that's more convenient? First. Second, why do they need to go there? I ask that question. Start at the first principle. Why is the person wanting to go somewhere? They wanting to go there for to buy something or to get to work or drop a kid to school.
Yeah.
Right now that is happening. You're wanting to drive far away to a school because you feel the school next to my house is not as good enough at that school. Now, is education, can that be democratized and have good education all over? अगर सभी स्कूल एक जैसी हो जाएगी और सभी अच्छा एजुकेशन देगी तो देन मुझे नहीं जाना पड़ेगा दूर, मुझे दूर नहीं ट्रैवल करना पड़ेगा, तो मैं वहीं से जा सकता हूँ. स्कूल बसेस कितनी अच्छी चल रही है, तो मुझे गाड़ी लेके नहीं जाना पड़ेगा, स्कूल बस हमारे ही घर से लेके जाएगी. तो गाड़ी का जो प्रॉब्लम है वो मल्टीवेरिएट है, एक साथ नहीं सॉल्व होगा. मतलब आपको पहले तो आपका आप कहाँ रह रहे हो और आप कहाँ काम कर रहे हो, वो दोनों साथ हो गए. मैं तो मेरी पूरी लाइफ ऐसे ही काम किया है. अभी आपने देखा मेरा घर यहाँ है और मेरा एक बंगलो. उसके पहले मेरे पेरेंट्स हुआ डॉक्टर्स, ऊपर रहते थे, नीचे क्लिनिक है. लॉयर ऊपर रहते थे, नीचे हमारा उनका लॉ का वो चल, तो अगर वैसा मिक्स्ड यूज है तो मुझे जाना ही नहीं है कहाँ, राइट? अभी सब तो ऐसा नहीं कर
नहीं कर
सकते, कोई को
सकते।
फैक्ट्री जाना है,
या
तो वही है कि पब्लिक ट्रांसपोर्ट भी इनफ गुड है, तो आपको गाड़ी की जरूरत नहीं है।
हाँ।
एजुकेशन में ऐसा है कि आपके बच्चे को एजुकेशन घर के पास वाली स्कूल में भी उतना ही अच्छा मिल रहा है जितना आप उसको अभी
दूर में
कोई
भेज रहे
हाँ
हो।
दूर में भेज रहे हो,
या
जहाँ आपको लगता है कि वहाँ बहुत अच्छा है, तो वो अगर नहीं है तो भी सब वहीं से लेंगे,
बिल्कुल।
राइट?
हाँ।
आप सब्जी में भी कैसा करते हो, आप घर के पास से ही लेते हो,
लेते हैं, हाँ,
राइट?
हाँ।
क्योंकि आपको मालूम है टमाटर टमाटर लिखने वाला, पर आपको कोई ने बोल दिया कि अभी ये खेत से आया हुआ बहुत अच्छा फ्रेश वहां मिलता है, तो फिर वहां चालू हो
जाओगे आप।
जाएगा लोग जाने।
हाँ, हाँ।
तो वो डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन ऑफ वो सर्विस कितना अच्छा आपके घर के पास है, वो प्लानिंग और गवर्नमेंट अगर और एजुकेशन पॉलिसी एजुकेशन से करे तो वो आपको गाड़ी की जरूरत उतनी कम होने वाली है। वो एक चीज।
या
एंड पब्लिक ट्रांसपोर्ट
या
दूसरा है,
बिग वन।
तो वो उससे वो कम होने वाला है। और फिर आप पहले सुविधा बढ़ा दो और फिर फाइन की ओर जाओ। अगर उसके बाद भी बंदा नहीं कर रहा है तो आप पार्किंग इतना ही वो कर दो कि उसको बाहर लाके गाड़ी जाके पार्क कहाँ करेगा, राइट? आज आप न्यूयॉर्क में जाते हो, मैनहट्टन में जाते हो, तो आप पार्क नहीं करते हो ना, आप पार्किंग लॉट में जाके फिर वहां पे पब्लिक ट्रांसपोर्ट लेते हो,
वॉक करते हो या पब्लिक
वॉक करते हो या
ट्रांसपोर्ट
पब्लिक ट्रांसपोर्ट
या
लेते हो। तो वही प्रूवन मेथोडोलॉजीज है, राइट? जितना आप अब पार्किंग का क्या है, पार्किंग इज वन कार, आपने रोड पकड़ लिया, वो जगह पकड़ ली, वो पब्लिक की जगह है,
बिल्कुल।
उसमें आपने एक अपनी गाड़ी पार्क करके आप निकल गए और आपको पैसा नहीं देना है उसका।
तो आपको तो कोई फर्क पड़ नहीं रहा है।
पर आपने इतने लोग का वो जगह इतने टाइम के लिए,
ले लिया।
हाँ,
और अगर पैसा आपको देना भी पड़ रहा है तो वो
हम्म,
नॉमिनल सा ही
तो
है
वो इतना
आपकी।
कम है कि आज जितना वेल्थ का डिफरेंशिएशन है
या
उसमें वो जो रिच आदमी है उसको फर्क नहीं पड़ रहा है। वो ऐसा होना चाहिए कि रईस को भी फर्क पड़े।
क्योंकि गाड़ी तो उसकी है।
हाँ, तो और रईस वाले के पास गाड़ी है तो तो वो ये पॉलिसी से सस्टेनेबिलिटी कैसे आ सकती है? तो आप जितनी एंड वो होना ही है, हम ही उसको अपोज भी करेंगे। हमारी गाड़ी है, हमको भी ऐसे ही कि वहां पार्क कर लो, वहां जाके ले आओ।
बिल्कुल। हाँ।
तो वो कन्वीनियंस पहले आप बढ़ा दो और वो बोलो कि वो जो पैसा बनने वाला है उससे, वो पैसे से हम ऑल सिविक एम्यूनिटीज और सुविधा ही बढ़ाने वाले हैं। तो पब्लिक देगी,
हाँ,
वो
वो
होगा थोड़ा।
ट्रांसपेरेंसी होनी
हाँ,
चाहिए।
वो ट्रांसपेरेंसी होनी चाहिए कि इससे हमने इतना पैसा कमाया और वो इस जगह पे लगा है। अब आपने बस सब
सिटीजंस को भी जस्टिफाई हो रहा है कि आप हमें तकलीफ दे रहे हो बट लार्जर
हाँ,
गुड है
तो
हमारा।
आपने हमारी अभी बस सब एयर कंडीशन कर दी। आपने बस में सभी बस में अच्छे कंडक्टर और अच्छे सबको बैठने की जगह, हर 10 मिनट में बस आ रही है। आपको वो सब सुविधा मिलने लगी है। तो आप वो पैसा देने में आपको कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं होगी और उसके बाद भी किसी को रखना है तो वो बहुत कम होंगे तो वो आप रख भी सकते हो।
हाँ,
तो
वो एक छोटा परसेंटेज हो
हाँ,
जाएगा
वो
फिर
फिर मैनेजेबल हो जाएगा ना, वो फिर वो जो हम बोलते हैं इलास्टिक लिमिट में आ जाएगा। अभी वो प्लास्टिक लिमिट में चला गया। इसमें तो एक पूरी सी रिसर्च हुई है कि कैसे पर्सनल इंटरैक्शन पार्किंग फीस बढ़ाने से कैसे पर्सनल इंटरैक्शन सुधर जाता है।
मतलब क्या है उसमें?
आज जब आपका पार्किंग होता है, डबल पार्किंग होता है,
हाँ।
तो रोड रेज होता है। रोड्स कम हो जाते हैं।
हाँ।
रोड सबको मेरे को पार्किंग नहीं
मारा-मारी
मिला,
है।
मारा-मारी। तो वो आपके एक-दूसरे के व्यवहार में दिखता है और वो जब क्लीन आउट हो जाता है, तो लोग एक-दूसरे को हेल्प करना बिकॉज़ मेरे को मालूम है मेरी अभी बस गई तो बाद 2 मिनट में वापस बस आ रही है, तो मैं किसी बुजुर्ग को किसी को बोलूँगा आप चले जाओ सर। तो ये तो पूरी की पूरी एक फुल स्टडी हुई हुई है इस पे। इट इज़ मैं ऐसे ही नहीं बता रहा मतलब इट इज़ अ होल व्हाइट पेपर ऑन इट।
आपने किन कॉर्पोरेट्स के साथ में एंड इट्स ओके इफ यू डोंट वांट टू नेम देम दैट्स टोटली ओके बट एज एन एग्जांपल you could see where their communication gap is. Of course, when they come to you, you assess all of that. But you had a real challenge in communicating it to their own leadership.
तो ओके, अच्छी बात तो वो है कि मोस्ट ऑफ द कॉर्पोरेट्स हु हैव कम टू अस एंड ऑल हैव बीन प्रोग्रेसिव इनफ एंड दे नो, राइट? सो they understand all of these people are large corporates who understand the value of communication because they were already having communication as employee communication, marketing and consumer communication. So communication, investor communication. So communication is already happening.
Probably that's why they were one of the 10 largest already.
Yeah, also, and they are when you are big enough, you without communication you cannot become. There has to be communication for exchange of ideas, for letting people know what is the value you're creating, what will be the value they will get if they align themselves to you, be it by giving you capital or buying your goods or working for you. All the three. So communication was happening. The issue was understanding what bigger role communication plays for behavior change in sustainability, because then the domain was different. Okay? What we had was the domain knowledge of sustainability, and we had the domain knowledge of communication. So we could marry the two, and we could present the domain knowledge of sustainability in the reference to context of what that person who's receiving the communication could understand. That is a key for people. Right? So that is where we came into the play, that we could, and then once that person understands what is good and bad for them, then behavior change happens. अब उसको बोलो पानी कम यूज करो, क्यों?
Yeah.
Right? And that is where I also
a
feel
why
that
to
my
everything.
Gujarati genes came in very handy. So there is a saying in Gujarati which says "मारू शू."
What about me? What's
इसमें
in it
मेरा
for
क्या
me?
है? हाँ, what's in it for me, right?
Yeah.
So what? So "मारू शू." So as long as your communication is able to offer to the guy "मारू शू," it works. And this is what even David Ogilvy said, right? Talk about what's in it for the customer and not about manufacturer speak.
Yeah.
Right? So most people make a mistake of talking about
Themselves.
हाँ, right? तो
I will
तुम्हारा
become
तुम्हारा
the
ग्रेट
largest.
अरे तुम्हारा ग्रेटेस्ट
तुम्हारा
प्रोडक्ट है, मेरे को क्या
क्या
दे
दे
रहा है?
हाँ. Yeah.
Am I getting comfort? Am I getting convenience? Am I getting thrill? Am I getting pride of respect? क्या मिल रहा है?
Yeah.
There would be tangible and there would be intangible, both emotional, rational, quantifiable, right, qualitative. But that I'm getting peace of mind that this car never stops. I'm getting a peace of mind that this car has the lowest service cost. This car gives me the best average. That is how you talk in marketing. That is the same thing we brought into sustainability. That by doing this, what is it that you will gain? First and foremost, we had not one, most of our clients we had to actually educate at that time. This 4P formula that you saw is because they asked us the same question. क्यों करें? तुम्हारा ये बिजनेस है, तुमको सस्टेनेबिलिटी कम्युनिकेशन आता है, मैं क्यों करूं?
Why should I even
So
invest
across,
in this?
and I had a client, a large engineering company, very large engineering. The person said, sustainability, this to looks like coma. Sustain होना like a vegetable being in coma. मुझे sustain नहीं होना है. मैं तो I am a entrepreneur. I have enterprise. I don't mind taking risks. I'm going to take risks. So for him, we had to actually call it thrivability and not sustainability. And we have to show him what are the opportunities and what are the risks if you don't do it. And then has a core business case and wanting to take the opportunity is what got him. So this, why you should adopt it, we had to tell them. Why communication is required, we didn't have to. That they knew.
Yeah, and also because उनको उनका आंसर मिल गया.
हाँ.
है ना? What's
They were
in it
very
for him or
हाँ,
them was
yes,
answered, then rest then they flow it.
और वही था हम. We had to also do communication to them. तो हमने 4P जो framework we synthesized, and it is not that I have a 2-day workshop on that, which we do for clients, right? Which is capacity building. They understand that at every role, what is the role that that person needs to play in the sustainability and why. So in that come these 4P, and they are supported by actual anecdotes of other companies of what has they done right and what was the result, what have they done wrong. So they know that this is what happens in real life,
world.
not theoretical.
Yeah.
जैसे मैंने आपको नंदीग्राम
कमरे में बैठा के तो कुछ भी
सिंगूर
समझा
बताया ना
दो.
आपको कि
हाँ.
भाई कैसे politics can play.
Yeah.
So are you looking at that? Right now there is all of this thing has come for single-use plastic, right? That if you do not recycle an X amount, you cannot produce more. Same has come in the tire industry. Right? You cannot produce a new tire till you responsibly recycle an old one. Those, and there are different slabs at every year as it goes. So if you are not part of that, you will not be able to produce. धंधा ही बंद हो जाएगा. So when they started to know that, now if I have to understand that, then I have to get it down through my whole organization. So all our projects were about doing internal capacity building. And
As
then,
per the domain.
and then because if the company itself is not sustainable, the employee does not know, आप बाहर जाके बात करते रहो, तो वो when the contact happens with the customer will know ये तो fake है. Right? So then after that we started outreach to external stakeholders.
Do you have an example to give? Just to put
All
this
of
in
them. So
context, something.
today we are working. Today, I think the 19th or the 20th year that we are working with Mahindra. Since the first time sustainability started, our first 2-3 years was all internal communication. We did a whole big, as in we had floor graphics, we had installations, we had standees, we had posters in high density areas, includes the washrooms, right? So we had films made. So it was a full 360-degree
Saying
internal
what?
talking about why it is important to do sustainability. And there, okay, so how did it start? When we did a little bit of research, when we got in, we said sustainability हम तो कर रहे हैं. तो बोला अच्छा कैसे कर रहे हो? Tell us. So he said हमारे यहाँ पे हरियाली, हमारा ट्री प्लांटेशन प्रोग्राम चल रहा है, हम ननिकली हम सोसाइटी के लिए कर रहे हैं. मैं बोला बिजनेस में क्या कर रहे हैं? अच्छा सस्टेनेबिलिटी एंड बिजनेस भी होना चाहिए. So most employee, the top knew, but the most employees thought कि ये तो हमारे यहाँ हो रहा है. Sustainability means क्या? एनवायरमेंट के लिए हम झाड़ उगा रहे हैं और हम मिलियंस में झाड़ उगा रहे हैं, राइट? और हम
पानी वेस्ट नहीं
कम्युनिटी
करते हैं
और हम
और अपने पेड़
कम्युनिटी का
लगाए हुए
नहीं,
हैं।
पानी का तो था ही नहीं, हम कम्युनिटी को हेल्प कर रहे हैं, राइट? तो ये तो दोनों हमारा चल ही रहा है. एंड दे हैड वेरी एनलाइटेंड ऑर्गेनाइजेशन वेयर इवन बिफोर द 2% CSR रूल केम 1% ऑफ द प्रॉफिट्स वर ऑलरेडी बीइंग प्लाउड बैक.
तो वो भी कर रहे हैं वे।
So we are correct. So then we said, but it is very business related. So we rebranded it completely and we called it alternative thinking. And we said alternative thinking is the approach of Mahindra to sustainability. And alternative thinking, it was that if you keep on doing things which have happened in the legacy way, you will not be able to survive. You have to think alternatively. Now, in that we said, okay, what is alternative energy? Right? So everybody generally thinks solar. We said alternative energies are people. Right? They're renewable. They come back every day, refreshed and recharged, and it's a never-ending power that we have.
Yeah.
Right? So that is how we then introduced the whole thing. Everything was about alternative energy, alternative thinking, and that the examples we gave is that everybody used to think that the Earth, the sun revolves around the Earth. Till Galileo thought of that, right?
Till a point, yeah.
Right? Everybody thinks the blind can't read. Till Louis Braille said alternative thinking. And he said the blind can read.
Employment of the country bothers me a lot. You know, the way things are, right? And the way we are operating as a country, in my own personal capacity, I'm trying to do a lot in that field, but nothing's moving as such. And the problems are at the education level, the output quality level, the expectation level at the brands level, the expectation of rewards and revenues that the companies can generate versus what people want, the lifestyle expectations, blah, 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 policies and security and all of that. But the truth of the matter is that being a young nation, a highly populous nation, if we actually capitalize or solve for the employment, we are winning, you know. But if we don't, this would be one of the strongest things to really get all the youth go berserk, you know, and spoil things for everybody. How would you solve this if you were to?
It's a tough one. It's a very tough one. We keep on thinking of this because in a lot of programs, education is a key and employment and skills, right? So livelihood, skilling, and education are three areas that most clients work on, and therefore we study it quite closely. It's a tough one to solve. It's too big, and more tech is coming, which is actually making sure that humans are not needed as much as they were.
Yeah.
And everybody can't be writing,
Those
AI
codes.
models and code,
Yeah.
and at the end of the day. So that is going to become a
Bigger challenge.
a tough and bigger challenge. Now the idea is how much wealth can the country generate to support all of these people and their aspirations is the key. If 10 people working can generate all of that wealth and I can tax those 10 people and then give all the amenities to all the other people, मैं मतलब बस फ्री है तो अभी आपको मूवी हॉल भी फ्री हो गया है, अभी आपको हॉस्पिटल भी फ्री हो गया है, मतलब you can do utopian and not going to happen because exchange of value, and there is also a feeling of I have done something. Right
At
now
the
that
end of the day, one's own identity, whatever done.
exactly.
Yeah.
So If you ask me, I don't have an answer for this. This is an area that a lot of people are trying to do small things in their own capacity. I mean, some very large, but as a problem is so large that anybody who does is still, it's a tough one to, I don't think the demographic dividend, as it was called, I dread the demographic.
Tell me more about that.
So, because the demographic is going to become delinquent, you are not going to have, aspiration are huge, opportunity to fulfill those aspirations are very few, and few will rise out, will go up, and the rest are going to be disenchanted, and the disenchanted can do any kind of delinquent behavior which you do not know, and you will not be able to predict, and there will be someone who will garner them, and garnered in the positive, hopefully, but more often than not it is going to become to somebody who's going to harness that rage into, things
Something
that,
that you don't
yeah,
want.
something that we don't want, which is going to be violent, which is going to make sure may have issues in society, so that is a possibility we are staring at,
Yeah, I
and
mean,
we are seeing it.
when we talk about sustainability of the planet versus sustainability of the human beings, and the latter being the only obvious thing, I mean, education also, I would say that
Okay.
India has lived a large era which was uneducated but thriving.
True.
We were the golden bird, totally uneducated, right? There were some things that we knew and we were doing it right, right? So अगर employment और education में से भी दो को करना पड़े तो ऐसे अच्छा, the president says that we have survived without education, formal education, formal, but thrived, but without an opportunity and a match between an opportunity and a person who delivers on that opportunity, how is the earth going to be sustainable
No, it's
for
not.
human
So,
beings?
human being as a species, as I said, will someday also go, right? And currently it looks like that we will implode. We will do our own. We don't need anybody from outside to come and, end the species. The species will end itself.
Will kill each
Or
other.
what it will happen is that, yeah, you will. So there is a, see, there is an, now there's a larger topic and a discussion. I don't know if you want to get into it. It's called sanctity of life. We have all been grown up with an assumption of the life, the sanctity of life. Right? Now, sanctity of life is what causes that we have as many more people on earth and resources that we consume. So one is each one of us consumes less, or we have lesser people who consume, period. We are not looking at lesser people because somewhere in our heads it's taboo to look at it, right? You also have world leaders and people in influence now talking about having more children, right? They're not talking about less, but they're talking about having more children. So there is a whole thought there. Now, if the resources which we can harness from earth or which the earth has are not enough to feed the numbers that we have right now, if the overshoot, happens in 3 months and 4 months now instead of 1 year also, then what is the idea of having, right? It is going down at places where it's becoming too expensive to have children, and there, but there is a whole swath of people or population where one more hand means one more hand going to work, and therefore one more hand who will bring back money. So it is a,
Because each person can probably earn only that
that
much,
much for
which is not going to be enough.
so therefore, so that is a area of concern, and this fractured society is the reality of our times. How is that fracture going to get mended? No idea. It looks, right, if you are from all the optimistic, this is a bit of a bleak area. I do not see it getting, and more tech coming in, more and more innovations coming in. We have always innovated for lesser effort to do the same thing. A car means you could travel more kilometers without that, right? Computer means now you can get more information without going to the library. Right? We have one of the key
Is comfort
and one
to
of the
get
core
to.
concepts you have to understand, which is what is leading to non-sustainability, unsustainable world or us, is we change the paradigm. Earlier, man used to go where the resources were. We would go and make a civilization next to the river. Once we had eaten up all of that, that whole civilization would move to another place and that place would rejuvenate by itself. What we saw in COVID, right? Things came. If we don't do anything, the place has the ability to rejuvenate. So that whole civilization would die. You will find all these old, and then we would move to another place, and that thing would
Right back.
Now हमने क्या किया? We are here.
And
We've completed all. Now we are drawing from there. We put pipes. Right? We are getting all the resources to us. We are actually taking away, means stripping of resources from everywhere. We are here. And we are constantly stripping off. So there is no rejuvenation available. So in that kind of case, there will be some big catastrophe which will come. Humans will get depopulated. That is going to happen. And with advances in sciences, we are also ensure if nature does depopulate, we are still getting advances in sciences and we are putting people. Like we did all those PPE suits during COVID. If you think COVID was one way that Kainat wanted to depopulate all of us
and teach us a lot.
Something. But if that was the case, if one may look at it philosophy, what did we do? We did all plastic, PPE, one-time use, fake dough, right? And we created so much plastic.
Yeah.
Right? During that period, we were just using once and throwing away gloves and masks and PPE suits and everything. So the idea is, did we actually accelerate it now? Will that come back someday? What will happen? So there is a ongoing churn, and those three Shaktis are going to keep on playing. Brahma, the creator, Vishnu, the sustainer, and Shiva, the destroyer. Right? Now, that is going to keep on happening, and someone will be higher, and that dance is constant. And so there will be a destruction. Shiva will come in his own. It is going to happen. It's only a matter of time. And I think that's only how the species may survive, if leaner, fewer people enough that the earth feels okay with them are here.
What do businesses get wrong about sustainability communication?
Multiple things, quite a lot. So first and foremost, what businesses get wrong is the ability to simplify it.
They think it cannot be simplified.
No, there are 2-3 kind of levels at which, first and foremost, you have to understand that the companies are at different learning curves on sustainability. Sure. Sustainability is a newly developing, right, concept. So it's not so new, but it's still new compared to advertising, marketing, right, quality control, all production, all of that. Compared to that, this is a much newer area. Yeah. Having a newer area, people are at different learning curves. 80% of issues start from the fact that the people who know communication in companies don't know sustainability. People who know sustainability don't know communication. Now, you should understand this. This starts from the core word, right, of the thing. What is, people use climate change and global warming, right? First and foremost, climate change. The word change is positive or negative? Positive. So, climate change broadly will be looked at as positive. If they had called it climate crazy, right? So, branding was a problem by the scientists who actually said that. Therefore, the quantum of impact that it has had on people is not that much.
Global warming.
Global warming. I'm living in Russia. I'm living in Canada. Is warming good for me or not?
I want it. Yeah.
So, branding has been an issue with the sustainability world because they were scientists. They were not people who were branding experts. So, you need communication experts at the start. That's what I always tell people. If you get communication experts at the start, every word has a meaning. And every word has a semiotic meaning to you. Right? That needs to work. Those, there are shades in it. It is therefore there is such a richness of language. Therefore, कोई poet का दिल पे लग जाता है और कोई का एकदम ही ऐसे ही लगता है. हाँ, तो वो लाना. Therefore, the communication guy has to have big responsibility at the start. वो जैसे आप कॉर्पोरेट आइडेंटिटी जब बनाते हो ना डिजाइन में, तो आप कॉर्पोरेट आइडेंटिटी क्यों इतना बड़ा रिस्पॉन्सिबल चीज है? बिकॉज वो फिर ट्रांसलेट होना है सब जगह,
और हर चीज में ट्रांसलेट.
तो वो आपने अभी ये क्लाइमेट चेंज कर दिया, तो वो क्लाइमेट क्रेजी किया होता ना, people would have completely taken it right different, because it's going to go crazy. That means I can't predict it. Change means I may be able to predict it. Today the whole, no, if I can predict it, I can take measures to mitigate its effect. The climate crazy है तो मुझे मालूम ही नहीं है
Out of
how it
control.
behave.
Out of control.
If
Yeah.
I don't know how it will behave, I can't. That
Yeah.
means when to plant rice, I don't know.
Yeah.
Right? When will the rain come? I don't know.
Mm.
When will there be floods? I don't know. If I know there'll be floods, I may not do it. I may evacuate myself and go up. I don't know when they will come.
And that's not a good feeling at all.
That is the problem, that you are completely out of control. That's the crazy part of it.
Yeah.
So if it was branded well, so issue coming back to the people who know communication did not know sustainability.
Got
People
it.
who know sustainability did not know communication.
Right.
That's the big gap. When you developed an Copcom or you developed an marketing and advertising arm in your company, or advertising also you farmed it out to someone, because you didn't know advertising, right?
Yeah.
The company knew marketing and they knew. So they kept a person, a brand manager, who gave it out to an advertising agency who did a specialized job. So sustainability communication is the same thing. The people
So
like
what's the
us,
solution?
the people like us who come in and who do the both. So it's like advertising agencies were the solution for them to communicate to their customers. Is the same concept here.
So get
You can
sustainability
build in,
communication expert.
you can build in if you want, but the idea is that there are now started classes or things. There are people who come out as sustainability experts. There are people who come out as the people in advertising, mass comm, journalism are not taught sustainability. Right? If they're not taught, the mass comm kid who comes out, or the journalism kid who comes out and graduate and whom you are hiring, does not know sustainability. So how will you? That domain is not known.
When you started in Baroda, Cognito is what you started with.
So no, okay, you have to go back a little. Before, while we were in college, we, like I said, everybody hustles to get some money on their own in college and all. So we used to run a small little thing called workshop. I used to be in engineering at that point in time and my MBA early, and Sangeeta used to be in fine arts. And with another friend of ours called Rupal, we all would be doing small jobs and things. And we had clients, and we were like, we would go and get someone's poster screen printed, design screen printed, someone's catalog, someone's manual. So all that kind of things we were doing. And that time it was called the workshop. And so we had small little setup going, and we were working at that time. Then Sangeeta went to NID, then I went to Ogilvy, and also therefore then that thing was kind of shut. And so we had some experience of doing things. It was not that we were, and that experience helped me a lot during my Ogilvy stint also, because I could, take out costs. I could know what the process is, how much time it will take. All of that was really, really helpful. So when I came back, it was not as if you were like starting completely afresh. You had a few, but the kind of jobs were those only. They were never the kind that you did when you were in Ogilvy, like you were looking at, Pidilite Fevikwik being launched, and you're doing a film with Satish Shah and Renuka Shane and, those kind of things. And then you're back here in the grind looking at bill books and invoices books and, triple copy and in different colors and things like that, and looking at a binding guy who you had never met there. So from shooting with Kundan Shah, who was the director for one of our television films, to coming here and working with a printer, so that is how the thing happened. And that obviously led to a bit of a.
But how did you decide what would you want to do, since it was so new? करना क्या है? ओगिलवी तो नहीं बना रहे थे कि वो कॉपी कर रहे थे, तो करना क्या है, कैसे होगा? Take us through your startup time.
Yeah, so see, one good part about my startup was that we are in that way a little privileged. We had home. In the home at the ground floor is where all my father, my grandfather, all had offices there. So that gave us an office space. So we were not paying any rent. So that was a good part of the whole thing, that we were not like, okay, hand to mouth nahi tha kuch, so that we had to hustle like crazy. But we were working and we were getting all these small odd jobs, and obviously getting a lot depressed at that time, that okay, ये decision ठीक लिया नहीं लिया क्या है, right? That was and in our head somewhere it was that we will go to the level of an Ogilvy. That was the thing. And Sangeeta had come from NID, so that was the kind of scale and the thing that she had seen. So we were both had seen scales which were really large. And so therefore, obviously in our head, we were already working from that perspective. It was always there, the perspective, but the reality was very different. What we were getting was not that. Right. So like usual, you were being taught that you would go to offsites and you will go and strategize and you'll come back with a plan. That
Yeah.
becomes your core thought process. That was the tool you knew.
Yeah.
So about 4 of us who were that time part of Cognito all went to a offsite at a resort, sat there with a whiteboard and marker pens and stuff like that. And then we waited for ideas to come and trying to brainstorm, and nothing was coming. And during that period, you looked at that, okay, college times, your core companion used to be the old monk, so we thought he would give us some wisdom. So,
अंदर
and
से निकाल देगा.
कुछ wisdom आएगा, the
हाँ.
old, as you say, old monk,
monk.
both, who better to give you.
Of course.
So, and lo behold, after about whatever 8-10 hours of just doing nothing but
And couple of bottles.
and having a conversation with old monk more than between ourselves. So we came to the fact that what is missing is that people having the quantum of money that is required to mount at the level that we want to mount. So we said, who would have that money? And simple after that was a very one line strategy statement that we came with: work with the 10 richest men of India. That was our core. Because why? Two, three things. One is they have the money. So we will not be doing, fighting for small things, and every little invoice won't be a battle. Second, they will be working at a large canvas. And third, they will be teaching us, which is the most important part, of how to think and execute big. Think big, a lot of people can have, but when you become the 10 richest, then you've executed it also. So that was a very important aspect of us. And because we were all newbies with 2 years or max 3 years of experience in our own work life, we always needed mentors, and we realized that our clients became our best mentors. That was and I am a strong believer that your first 8-10 clients set the culture, set the way you work. So all of that is what put us up for. And out of those 10, we worked with 6 or 7 by the time we were done. And I think that there lies the true grain of the success. Obviously, the passion for excellence, the thing for detail, the idea to benchmark yourself with the best and not benchmark yourself only in the town or the geography where you are, all of that helped. But all of that was something we had already learned in our past. So we brought that into play. And because we were all trained at some of the best and had some of the best bosses and colleagues in the places that we worked with, like Saida's worked with, as we said, like she was directly with SM, then she was working with Mahindra Bhai, then she was working with Mr. Choksi. She was working with all of these people. So she had that whole, that ethos of what is good design, how to go about it, was already with there. And I had bosses like a gentleman called Adip Puri, Sanjeev Lamba, who inculcated into me all of that. And in the same Sonal, Piyush, all of them were also there, who you were watching. You were like a young guy, they were up there, you were seeing how they were working. So you imbibed all of that and you brought it here. But if you don't get that canvas, you can't put it into a bill book. You can do some part of it, but it's obviously not going to have the kind of impact that. So that is also what helped us. But it really changed our vision and perspective by seeing how these big guys worked. So like I would say from Mr. Sangvi of Sun Pharma, I got to know of how you should do costings. He had the whole thing of how do you look at do you put in a amount for collections? So when you are doing your costing of your project, is there a percentage or something you put for collecting your money?
Money put
Yes.
aside for collecting the
Not
money.
even put aside, just in your costing, you should have that it is
Account
going to
for it.
take me 2% of my total thing to just get this money. So my guy has to make an invoice, somebody has to follow up. That person, that company may not pay me on time. So therefore, there is a time value for money, right? So, right, that was the whole thing. With some other person, we realized, like Mr. Tanti used to always know what would any project or any campaign you do broken down to what it would cost to a single wind turbine. So anything you did, how will that change your cost of your product? You should know. So there were a
What
lot
do you
of these
think
kind
you
of
brought
things.
and you and
their
you as a team brought to the table early on, which got like the top 10 guys to even,
Yeah.
give a look to you?
So that's an interesting question because when we started, which is about 30 years ago from now, and at that point in time, advertising was a completely different discipline and design was a completely different discipline. Actually, design looked down on advertising. And advertising guys thought these guys are snobs, right? So, and there was this whole, I mean, there are very few people, like I still remember Sonal Dural was one of them from NID, who was in Ogilvy and was from, and so, but there were very few who were otherwise from the design fraternity into advertising that time. Advertising agencies had their own, they were doing large budget, large campaign. Design guys thought these guys are dumbing down design. They don't know design. Those guys thought these are snobs. They're putting too much attention on things which don't really matter. And why the hell are they doing that? And we've got both of them together because I came from advertising, hardcore. She came from hardcore design. So we got together something which eventually rolled out as one to the world now. Even now, there are a lot of design studios which are alone in advertising, but now at least
Much
there has
lesser.
been, yeah, there has been an amalgamation of all of that, which was not there then. That was one of the first thing. Second thing is we were a startup, a smaller, more responsive kind of organization with all the skill sets of the large, and which was something which really attracted these people. One of them, which started with actually Aptech here, where we started doing their work for just the Sayajiganj. This is the locality, not even the city.
Okay.
And they used to have centers, and that time everybody wanted to do computers and that, right? And so they gave us this. Then they saw the kind of work, they gave us Baroda. Then the Baroda went happened. So then they went to the regional headquarter. Then from there we went to the national headquarter, and then we started doing work nationally for them. That is what then the person from Aptech went to Suzlon. And they had an exhibition coming, and she had seen us do exhibitions here, and it was happening in Chennai, and they wanted somebody to mount that exhibition in like 3-4 days. And our guys did it and took everything and went to Chennai and put it up. And that's how and then one thing led to another. And once they see that you're able to deliver the goods, so that's how the whole thing started. But it was an idea that there was a design and advertising thought process which helped us deliver excellence in our work, which was not. So the ads you did actually stood out, right? And when they actually were looking very different from other ads, everybody would notice them. And
Which
then,
were those ads?
oh, they were all for Aptech. They were,
Okay,
yeah,
that
all
time.
of
Yeah,
those that,
okay.
and they were going nationally. So we were doing like, 2 full pages a week, all India, Times of India. They would be, so it was huge. It really went big, right? So, and that's what got the eye of a lot of larger people. And then they would give us, typical path was they would give us a small project. We would do that project. They would give us a larger project. We would do that. They would give us a still larger project. And that's how it went. And we were lucky that in most of them at those times also, the owners and the actual, most of these are the 10 richest also, most of them are owner driven businesses, if you know. Right? So they were the ones who we could interact with. And that got them to get confidence in us. And when they got the confidence in us, then the floodgates opened. And then the floodgates opened because then they would, when there's a project of any strategic importance, they would say, get this guy in.
What are you driven by personally?
What am I driven by? Okay. So the different stages of life. So I think in the first stage of life, when I came back from Ogilvy, I was driven by the fact that doesn't matter, I'm going to be in Baroda, I have to build a similar career or a higher than what a Ogilvy would have.
Right.
That's second is I think I was
Which
always
meant fame and
ah,
money? That
both,
would be
both,
yeah,
both,
sure.
both. So you
Yeah.
had to have a professional recognition
Identity.
and a certain amount of a certain amount of, how would I say it? Not compliment, but certain amount of respect within peers who would know that what you're doing is fine. And obviously, you needed the money to survive, to make it larger, to that. So that is, both of them were very much there. There was once upon a time I had this that, okay, we will pitch at one client with Ogilvy and win. When we had, because that I have seen how Ogilvy would win on pitches. So you had that कि हमने यहाँ काम किया तो when our small भी हम भी, like, that is when we will also feel that we are
at that
we've
level.
arrived now. Now we are we can be counted with the big boys or whatever.
Yeah.
That was so that was what drove. It was all professional achievement was what drove me in my first 10 years, I would say, of that. Then came a different thing that, okay, we need to do something for the city. We need to do things which are, large beyond just your professional. And I think the last 10 years have also been more about personal. So you want to go and travel, you want to see all things which give you, so all your passion projects of being, music, art, right, travel, right, good cuisine, good kind of spirits, everything then came into play. So that's how I would break it into three parts. The first, and it was, I think, because I was driven on the professional in the first 10, I've been able to do the other two.
Foundation
So the
got set.
foundation and the resources come from there, no?
Yeah, of course.
Without that, you won't have the resources. You want to do the best, but you cannot travel. You cannot go, right? If you don't have the means.
Yeah.
And the means get provided through the professional.
Yeah.
So, and the professional also, thank God, we have constantly upped the ante.
Yeah.
And because of that, we are working with bigger, better, more progressive clients, assignments which have larger impacts than assignments which would be done great, but their outreach only will be that much.
Yeah, that much.
You're working with clients who are global, who have like multi-lakh employees, who have so diverse businesses. There's one thing another which we really, by I don't know, by design or by default, we specialized in is conglomerates with diverse businesses.
Okay.
And how do you craft communication for them, where they have multiple stakeholders with different issues of each industry, but how can you bring it all together? So be it the Tata Group, be it the Aditya Birla Group, be it Mahindra. Again, many people think of Mahindra only as one and the SUVs, but they have multiple, right from real estate to farm and agri, which is their tractor, and that then, right, so they have multiple businesses too. So all of these clients, we somehow gravitated towards that, and now I think we have developed an expertise which very few have, of working across diverse businesses. So that is also one of the things why the Adani Group came to us, where we were able to do that. So that's how our journey has panned out. It was, I think, not by design, but our ability to synthesize these multiple issues and bring them out in a unified messaging format.
So what are the kind of skills or practices that helped you not just like go linear and be the best one in that, but also go
So,
horizontal?
so I think I thank my mother for it. I think she made me a tea person, and a tea person is somebody who has a wide range of interests. So I was sent to art classes, I was sent to music classes. I used to go drop her and she would go to classical music. Then obviously your sisters and everybody used to listen to rock music, and so you got exposed to a lot of things. Second part was, I think, in mother's avid reader. Avid, as in daily she would be going to a library and picking up a book, and almost daily she would finish one, or 2 days, 3 days.
Spite of everything
Everything. Oh, she was a doctor. She was
Doctor.
running. Yeah. But that was a thing. So we somewhere got that idea about reading, and with her, I would go there while she would pick up books. I would be picking up magazines. So I started to read magazines. Now, magazines, the good part was there was a lot of news in magazines of different kinds, which was I would not have been exposed to it that time. But because the magazine editor put it in there, I now got to know about it. So you had a lot of interest and, kind of curiosity to get knowledge was something that got inbuilt into me. So now even today, my morning doesn't feel okay if I don't get a newspaper. I go to I take the night train, I go to Bombay in my guest house. I will get up in the morning itself. I'll go out and buy the newspaper. Uh, It is somehow now ingrained. So I think that are the things that, as a skill, that your ability to know what is happening. Then obviously ability to synthesize it came because I did my engineering. And in engineering, what you do is you solve a problem. So for me, every communication challenge is a problem. These are all the inputs I have. How do I bring them all together? And so first you have to eliminate, you have to keep on going. So it's that whole inverted
going
pyramid,
ladder by
right? Yeah. So it's that inverted pyramid thought process. So you're going sharpening, sharpening, sharpening till you get to the solution, which is at the bottom apex, but it is at the, so that is what I think my engineering then helped me. First was to collect all of this inputs from various sources, which is what my reading and my mother and all of that got me. Engineering got me into how do you then focus it down to what matters out of it and how do you synthesize. So that is what happened. And then I think through working with, like, because me and Sangeeta have been now together for eons, as we said, right? Like 40 years and all. So I think we developed together. So her interest also became my interest. So if she studied art history, I also looked at art history. And then the art and communication came in from there. And therefore, what you synthesized got you the right brief. That was what to say I could do very well, of what needs to be said. Now, how it will be said so that it becomes engaging is what the art side, and that will, how do you dramatize it? How do you get the emotional quotient into it? How do you gain attention? Because if you don't get attention, nobody's going to see it. Nobody sees it, nobody registers it. So, first, how to get attention, how to get the emotional connect. So, all of that came in from that area. So, I think those three, four things, and then the practice of it and good clients. And I must say that that's a very important thing for anybody who wants to do good work, is to have good clients. Because without that, it becomes very difficult. You cannot
That's
keep
half the
on
story.
teaching. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of our early clients are the ones who have also had a great influence in the way that, and we've seen it giving results. So it gets reinforced. And now you can able to say with confidence and what people call arrogance sometimes, but that I know this will deliver because we've been through with clients and all.
Yeah.
So that is how the journey has
And
happened.
repeated it.
And now you
not
know,
an
as
accident. It's
exactly
not,
as they say in science, no, if you can repeat the outcome, then you
That's
know
a-
that the law works.
works. Yeah.
So that is why at 30 years and this many assignments in,
Sure.
now you know
Yeah.
that this will work. Now you get that.
You have that
Yeah,
sense.
you have that.
The entire history behind it. If you had to put together the future of sustainability or to distill it in one principle, what would that be?
So as a, I may, I'll try and put it as a concept.
Okay.
What it is, it is the ability to sustain is a very simple way of, it's just a, right, sustainability is the ability of the human race to sustain. Now sustain, as the one client of mine said, is like being in coma. So you don't want to sustain. If you are not progressing, you're not sustaining, right? There are only two states. You're progressing or you're regressing.
Right.
But motion is constant. Right? So if you're not progressing, you're regressing. Having said that, I think we have to progress to keep sustaining. Right? So that's the and that ability to navigate through different challenges, because different scarcities will come. Different kind of abundances will come. All of a sudden, we have an abundance of information and data, which was not there. So it's sustainability not only dealing with scarcity, it's also dealing with abundance. When floods come, it's abundance. Everybody thinks that's a problem. The amount of choice given to you for fashion is abundance. It's not a scarcity, and it's a problem, right? The abundance of the plastic bag, right, is its problem. Otherwise, do you know that, right? That a cloth bag needs to be used hundreds of times before it is equivalent to one plastic bag. And if I use the plastic bag twice, then the cloth bag has to be used that much more time. So we actually have a mailer which says the plastic bag is a sustainable than a cloth bag. So idea is to know those principles to how to navigate them. But coming back to what you said, I think the what is in abundance and what is in scarcity is going to keep on changing, and the human will have to be adaptable, knowledgeable, and fleet-footed enough to navigate that. The core, I feel, is the problem is the person who is creating it, the imbalance, is not the person who's paying the price for the imbalance. That is somehow that justice or that natural justice, does it exist, is something I keep on questioning myself. And that is when then this whole concept comes of Sat Janam and all of that. Because in this, I do not see the person who has created the imbalance actually paying a price for it.
वरना नहीं करते ना
अब
कम
मालूम ही
करते
नहीं,
हैं
हाँ, एटलीस्ट वो इट वुड हैव सेट अ प्रेसिडेंट, देन पीपल से देखो उसने ऐसा किया तो उसके कर्म का उसने वो भुगता, तो आप नहीं करोगे ये कर्म, वो अभी तो नहीं दिख रहा है.
accountability
For what you did, the natural justice coming, I'm not seeing it right now, if you ask me. Surely not seeing it. So therefore, I feel that the price is going to be paid by a very different swath of people. The supposed sins of sustainability are going to be created by a, and again there is the richer are going to get away with a lot, and the poor are going to pay a bigger price.
ending on a sad note Yeah, that's where we are. But you
Yeah, but
put
the reality is
yeah,
you can't change. I mean,
overnight तो कुछ नहीं change
you have
होता.
to first, actually, I think you have to first acknowledge the reality and then look at. And if the collective consciousness comes up, then we can surely change that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That is a
That's the power.
that's the power of the collective consciousness.
Yeah.
And then that is when French revolutions happen. No? Right? So, do we want that revolution or do we want to course correct before things of that
That
kind
tipping
happen?
point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but there will be on the sustainability front also, I feel there's going to be a major upheaval when the resources are not easily available. And water is an area to be really, really careful about. Water is going to be water is a very, very dear, because water is not like air that it's just transports from here to there. Na? Water तो है या नहीं है, you will know. I do not have clean drinking water.
And you can't
You're
take it.
not, there's nothing much you can do about it at that time. And that time there will be a conflict of interest. There will be, right? So those
Geopolitical
बहुत
situations.
होगा ना.
All of
That is an area which keeps me, if somebody what keep me awake or what I think I would put my head on is that if somebody told me where would you relocate right now, I would relocate where there's huge fresh water. I would relocate to a place there because I know that then my rest of my life I won't have to worry about it. I would relocate where there's a lot of fresh water and no flooding. Because we've seen a lot of floods here and we have flood trauma. Yeah, so what I'm saying is the natural elements are gonna rule over us. We may think we can control them, but we are not
they are very
above them.
stronger. Yeah.
That is another thing I strongly feel. I think humans are a narcissist race who has put themselves on the top of the pyramid. I do not believe that, and that's for another podcast someday. But why? I do not think that we all think that we are on the top of the food chain. I'm not a strong believer of that. I think there are a lot more organisms and forces at play
Because
which
of
are,
which, without which we do not exist.
we just take them or they do not come, and they have not written the science books, or they have not written history, as they say,
And the
and therefore
constitution.
we think we are on the top of that. But I strongly have a lot of reservations. I would not fool myself to believe that we are a race which is on the top of everything.
So few things, guys. When we talk about collective consciousness, मुझे अभी तक ये वर्ड का यूज़ होता था नॉर्मली इन अ मूवमेंट, कोई मिशन, कोई बहुत बड़ा नेशन बिल्डिंग एक्टिविटी या ऑर्गेनाइजेशन बिल्डिंग एक्टिविटी में मैं खुद ये वर्ड यूज़ करती हूँ कलेक्टिव कॉन्शियसनेस. बट जो हर्ष का पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू है, this is so brilliant that actually we are only meaningful when collective. Individually, it's not much that we can do. So जब हम सस्टेनेबिलिटी जैसे टॉपिक की बात करते हैं, एक हमारा इमिजिएट अटेंशन जाता है अर्थ की सस्टेनेबिलिटी के ऊपर. बट सही बात है, अर्थ को डिस्ट्रॉय भी हम ह्यूमन्स ही कर रहे हैं और उसको संजो के रख भी सकते हैं हम ह्यूमन्स ही. सो अगर ह्यूमन्स सस्टेन करेंगे, एंड इट डजंट मीन कि हम जी लेंगे, यू नो, हम ह्यूमन्स का, मुझे ऐसा लगता है हमारा ईगो भी इतना होता है कि अभी आप भी मुझे सुन रहे होगे और आप में से कोई ना कोई तो कह रहा होगा कि डोंट वरी, विल सर्वाइव, यू नो, वी नो हाउ टू हैंडल थिंग्स. दैट्स फाइन. सो जस्ट सर्वाइविंग इज़ नॉट द पॉइंट, थ्राइविंग इज़ द पॉइंट. अच्छे से जिए हम, हेल्दी रहें, वेल्दी रहें, यू नो, डू वेरी गुड फॉर आवर सेल्स. सो उस तरह का सर्वाइवल ऑफ ह्यूमन बींग्स इज़ टोटली डिपेंडेंट ऑन businesses around us. You know, it's obviously understood कि businesses are the people who are businesses are the systems in which things are getting created, jobs are getting created, products and services are getting created. That is where the economy is coming up. So 100%, I actually did not think of this chain before talking to Harsh, but I'm glad I did. How was it for you? Do write to us in comments. And let's process this, let's do our bit, let's have collective consciousness, and let's strengthen our own businesses and people associated with our businesses. On the topic of sustainability, the common side of sustainability which we talk about is nature, natural sustainability of the earth and of people around it. So for that, you must listen to the podcast with Pooja Mathur. She is somebody who started practicing on sustainability just before COVID, and then COVID took away her own sustainability, but she survived and thrived. And today, her business is not only making an impact in the big fat weddings, simplifying the big fat weddings of our country, but also in the way we consume food, in the way our clothes happen, in the way we dispose our garbage, all of it. So small, very effective tips for us to take home. Pooja Mathur. The other episode is of Dr. Nidhi. She's an ENT surgeon, but more importantly, a brilliant person, very well read, an author herself, and keeps a very holistic view of the medical system, of our human anatomy, of the way our brain works, and the way our neurosystem works. So, a conversation which started from a topic like how does our brain function to COVID, to noise, internal and external, and much more. You must not miss this podcast. I hope you're enjoying Flirting with the Fish. We are over 50 episodes now, so cheers for that. Keep writing to us with what you're looking for, the topics, the guests that you would like to hear, and we'll be happy to make it happen for you. Keep flirting with the fish.